All right. Thank you so much. Our next, panel here is going to be Coastline Alumni. We're going to have a quick, just 30 minutes, and hopefully we'll be able to stay a couple minutes into that. But first, I want to introduce some students. I think most, if not all of these students were at least my students, and I know other students of professors that have taught alongside me here. Luke Cece is the first person I want to introduce. Jocelyn Arbello, Joel Wu, and Enrique Santos. They have all they're moved on now. They were at Coastline at a certain point in time, but we picked them for various reasons, and some have just came here and taken a couple classes. Other ones started here and transferred. And so that's what I really want to lead with is, Luke, can you go ahead and tell me, just tell me your educational history. And I'd like you to start at the high school level and then just kind of proceed from there and until where you're at today.
Thanks, Kevin. It's nice to be with you all. I was homeschooled from kindergarten until college. And so I was homeschooled during high school. During high school, I took a couple community college classes while I lived in Hawaii. I took some classes at the college there. I moved to California, joined Coastline. They had a special program that guaranteed classes in an accelerated 1.5 year time period. After that, I transferred to Cal State Fullerton, where I studied business with an emphasis in finance and graduated there in 2017.
Awesome. Thank you. And is it Jocelyn or Joycelyn? Jocelyn? You're muted.
Sorry, Jocelyn.
Jocelyn, go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn. I went to Estancia High School. I went to Coastline to transfer, so I was there for about 2 years, kind of finished it and rushed into it, and then I transferred over to Cal State Fullerton, doing business administration, and graduated this past year in December 2020.
Congrats, go Titans.
Yeah.
Jewel.
Hi, my name is Jewel. I went to Diamond Bar High School. I went to University of California, Irvine, almost 10 years ago. I went to Coastline to take some accounting classes for a career shift, and currently I'm getting my master's at UIUC.
Awesome, thank you. And Enrique.
So I went to the Demus Fundamental High School in Santa Ana and then transferred to Coastline, where I met Mr. Kevin Erdkamp, Professor Kevin, and also Paolo. And I transferred to UC Berkeley, where I studied economics. I've graduated in 2019.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so second question, back to, let's start with Enrique, who's last is first is last, right? Enrique, do you know what you wanted to do when you focused or study a focus academically when you first started college?
No, yeah, so that was actually like the biggest question that I had. Even just in high school, I didn't really kind of know where I wanted to be or end up. I just kind of know I like the business field. So I decided not to, follow the traditional, you're going to have to go to a 4-year and just commit straight out of high school. So, which is why I decided to go to Coastline, where I was afforded a lot of great resources. I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, which is why I stuck with a broad economics degree. And it wasn't until, I guess, my senior year in college at UC Berkeley, where I really just started putting in some time and doing those tests, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and then ended up in underwriting. So it's never too late to kind of pick your path. So
awesome, thank you, Joel. Same question. Did you know what you wanted to do when you first started college?
I thought I knew what I wanted to do when I started college, so I declared an econ and poli-sci major to go to law school. But I took a lot of quantitative economics classes. I always loved math, but I never knew why I never wanted to be an accountant or be in a tax profession. And it took me 10 years to realize, well, I think I'm going to do a career change. And then that's when I decided to take some classes at Coastline.
Awesome, thank you. Jocelyn.
So I'm kind of a little bit of both. I did know what I wanted to do, and then I didn't know. I did know I wanted to go to a 4-year college, but my plans ended up being at Coastline. But I think that was a benefit for me just because I met Paulo, I met you, and then I also worked with Enrique as an EOP, as a student ambassador for Coastline. So it got me more knowledge about what I can do, the resources I can use. And then I kind of just went from there, still stayed in the business area. When I transferred, I still was sure I wanted to do business, but my second to last year, I wanted to focus on a different part of business that I didn't think I can attach to what I wanted to be in the future. So, which is working in either social media or business entertainment. And I didn't even know that existed until I went to Cal State Fullerton. And I kind of wanted to focus on public admin as well before I transferred, but it just ended up working out, me being in business.
Awesome. Thank you. And Luke?
I knew that I wanted to study business. I have been interested in that. And so I studied business at Coastline. And then when I transferred to Cal State Fullerton, I started with an emphasis or business administration major with an emphasis in accounting and finance, and later ended up just doing the finance portion of it.
Awesome. Interesting story about Luke is he sold me a life insurance policy. So I like to network, and back when he was at a prior firm, hopefully I won't need it anytime soon, but my family might benefit if they do. So anyways,
Yeah.
All right, Luke, well, let's go back up to you again. What advice do you have for students as they look for future careers or future programs to apply to? Gosling.
Yes. Can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. What advice do you have for students as they look for future careers or future programs to apply to?
I would say kind of get the more knowledge. The more knowledge you know, the better. Kind of find out what you want to do, what you don't want to do. If you can take general classes and you say that is giving me one interest, look that as a career. If you like that class and you can think, oh, maybe I can do this, but in a different sector, I would say go and focus on that, just because I did that. And like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do at first. And I ended up finding what I wanted to do towards the end of my degree. Although I didn't plan it, it was good. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Jewel, what advice do you have?
I would do my due diligence and research, but I would also I think networking is really important for your career. I agree with everything Dr. Fleming mentioned as well. I would reach out, also do internships, and even when looking for a community college to apply to, I only looked at at first when I researched, I looked at one location, but I realized there's so many programs that different colleges offer as well. So I would just do a lot of research and networking.
Awesome. Thank you. Enrique.
Yeah, I would I guess I would say be patient with yourself. There really isn't like a rut. Like it's not about how fast you get there. It's more about the experiences that you have and ultimately getting where you want to be. So I would say the first thing is be patient with yourself, but also open up and reach out to your resources. Paolo was always a very good resource. He always kept me up to date with open opportunities and all that good stuff. So be patient and just try out your resources. You're not alone. You're not alone, essentially.
I would agree. Paulo has sent me several accounting positions, and I've forwarded them on to my students, and some of those have actually turned out. And so I agree. Paulo, along with a lot of faculty and staff here, are amazing resources for you. So yeah, please take advantage of all of us. This is why we're here. We're not, you're not bothering us. It's actually the whole reason why we're here is for these types of things. And so, Luke, you're back.
Yeah, I think it's working now. I'll turn off my video if it starts to slow down. But to answer this question, I would say a few things. One is I didn't hear a lot of what Kevin said, but I looked him up, and he talks a lot about defining a value of or defining education and goal setting. And I would start with the first thing is understand what's most important to you. So kind of start with the end in mind as a classic phrase. So if you know what you want your life to look like, start with that as the goal. If I want to have a family and live in Minnesota or something, start with what is the goal? So kind of figure that out early on, what's most important to you. Practically, I would say it's kind of a few things that are really helpful as you look for future careers and programs is intern and try to intern at multiple different companies in different industries, not just one. If you can't intern, or obviously there's not enough time to intern everywhere, talk with people in the industry. It'll be well worth your money to take a friend out to breakfast who works in the field that you're interested in and pick their brain. Another thing would be take a Gallup's Strength Finders test. I heard Kevin mention Strength Finders 2.0. That's one of the most helpful of the personality tests I've taken in terms of a career, because it helps you focus on what your strengths are. You can do one that's like $15-$30 and it'll give you your top 5 strengths. You can pay a little bit more and get all 32 of them. It's really insightful. And then the advice I would give is to be mindful of the cost of any program that you go to. So I got accepted after Coastline to both Chapman and Cal State Fullerton. But Chapman was 4 times as expensive. And I was just going for a standard business degree. I also was able to get into a business honors program at Cal State Fullerton that provided a lot of that networking benefits. So don't be afraid of the costs. It can be valuable. So a master's degree will usually pay off, but be mindful of the cost, and that is it. Make sure don't just because it's an education or a job training program, still be mindful of the cost and evaluate if it's worth it.
All right, thanks. And Paulo just wants to say something real quickly here about internships and the value of those.
Yeah, so completely agree with what Luke said and other, everyone else saying when it comes to internships and relevant experience, and what Dr. Fleming said about, having the degree and the certificate and the relevant experience all together is really the key. Education alone is really not enough nowadays. And I'm going to put the link to the career services on the chat. That way you know that resource exists. So please reach out. Kevin?
All right, thank you. And I also want to say, please type your questions in the chat if you have some for our panel, and we'll address them here at the end. We're going to try to save a little bit of time. We got a couple more that we just wanted to cover. I want to go back, Luke, since you were, at the end there. Let's start with you again. How did your time at Coastline prepare / impact your current career activities or future education?
There's a few ways it impacted me. The first is in just the knowledge I gained. So I'm a financial advisor, so I work with money and business owners often. So particularly at Coastline, the education and accounting was helpful. Also, I would say the other programs at Coastline. So I participated in the VITA program, which is where you prepare tax returns for low-income people. And that has been one of the most helpful educational things I did relative to my career, is allowing me to learn how to communicate with people as well as prepare taxes. I was also on student government at Coastline. That gave me just general ability at networking and meeting people and leadership. And so I would say at school, one of the valuable things is not just the education, but this unusual microcosm of teachers and faculty and different student government and organizations and clubs that is unique to nowhere else in life. So try to take advantage of some of those things as well. It obviously prepared me to succeed at Cal State Fullerton, and then gave me some connections in the community, like working with Kevin and coming back to these kind of things is awesome.
Awesome. Jocelyn.
I would have to agree. Take advantage of your school. Coastline has a lot of resources. Paulo's a really good resources. I think Paulo was helping me decide if I wanted to stay in business, do public admin, and kind of figure out where I wanted to be. And also I did work with the student ambassador and EOPS department, and they just give me more knowledge overall. So I use that knowledge to kind of benefit the younger people I know. And also at Cal State Fullerton, networking is a big thing. Use that department and just everything that you can find about your school or whatever program you're going into. If you can find programs that are just going to benefit you, definitely reach out and don't be afraid. I know it's a scary thing and might be alone, but it can benefit you later.
Thank you. Jewel, how did Coastline impact your career or activities or future education?
As I mentioned, I've been out of school for 10 years and I haven't cracked a book in 10 years. And, going to get my grad school degree, it was intimidating, but taking the classes, it really prepared me and kind of got me going into my studies. And on top of that, when I did all my interviews for my internships at the public accounting firms, they really acknowledged the fact that it was practical classes like the VITA and the Excel for accounting class that I took as well. So, yeah.
Wow, two VITA testimonials. That's awesome. Out of 4, that's 50%. All right. Enrique, how about yourself?
Yeah, so for me, I guess like it was kind of easier to kind of take classes that you were sort of interested in but weren't sure if you were like fully committed to. So I think that was a pretty good benefit, just getting exposed to different classes like accounting. I'm sorry, like I really did not like accounting, so that was like a cross off of my, like, I'm not going to be an accountant. Not because the class wasn't fun, but just because it seemed a little bit not in my like wheelhouse. But other than that, I think the small classes and the small like structure really helped me kind of build that confidence from the bottom up, and especially like going from like a very small school to a very big school. I was able to kind of take those baby steps, like being more involved, raising my hand, like, asking questions. So that like helped me build a foundation to transfer it to a bigger institution once I did graduate.
Awesome, thanks. And I'll give you this last question here, Enrique. We'll make sure we have time for student questions. I see some in the chat here, but how would you advise, Enrique, if you were like advising me to plan for my future? What would be maybe just some couple of quick tips you'd suggest?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to get like super dark and whatnot, but what I've read, or something that I read that really stuck with me is that you kind of like just picture yourself that you're kind of passed away. You're at your own funeral. You have 3 groups of people that talk about you. You have your loved ones, your community, and then like your business partners. And just imagine how you want them to describe, and how you imagine them describing you. That's how you should kind of act every day. So like the decisions that you make are ultimately going to lead to that like end goal, or like the way that you want to be described. So just have some sort of, I guess you can start with the 5-year plan, but ultimately start where you want to end off, and then just work your way towards there is what I would say.
Awesome, great.
To do that.
Very sage advice there. Great. Let's see, Jewel.
I would take even though you definitely know what you want to do, like Dr. Fleming mentioned, I think a student wanted to be a vet, so she interviewed the 5 veterinarians. I personally did a lot of internships during my undergrad, and I realized law school isn't for me. And I also shadowed people at the big corporate law firms as well, and I realized this is definitely not for me. So I think taking those opportunities, and whether it's paid or it's volunteer, I would really go out there and just explore and be confident. And I think that's important too, and not be afraid of rejection, because I've been rejected for interviews and jobs or even schools, and I think I would keep going.
Awesome, thank you. Jocelyn.
I have to agree with both Jewel and Enrique. I think if you can find your purpose, what you feel that you want to do in life, and you can exclude things. Say you take one class, okay, I don't want to do that for the future. I want to do this other class, and you want to focus. If you can find that from the beginning, it's much easier, and not giving up, even though it takes time, it takes a lot of patience. Having that patience within yourself, and just with school, because school does get hard. Everybody has a story that we don't know you're going through. If you can find that and find your value, and just go out and get the resources from your school, and kind of not be afraid. Like Paulo said, you're not alone. Use Paulo. Pretty much, if you can plan for your future with knowing your purpose, you should be okay. It just takes a lot of patience.
Yeah, you could use that diagram, right, that Dr. Fleming had today too. That'd be an excellent one. So Luke, final question here before we get to student questions, which I see a lot of great questions in the chat. How would you advise me to plan my future?
Yeah, so I'd reiterate what I said earlier about kind of figuring out what's most important to you, start with the end in mind. Another thing I would say is consider trade-offs. So you want to look for a career that is fulfilling, but also want to recognize the realities of life. So if you are, well, actually, Kevin, the speaker earlier, kind of counter this. He said you can make a lot of money doing anything as long as you're the best at it. But keep in mind that certain careers are easier to make more money than others. So there's trade-offs. So you can be an investment banker and make a lot more money earlier, but you will work 80 hours a week. And so if a family is really important to you, you might want to avoid that. Similarly, if you don't like school, but you want to be a doctor, don't go to medical, you probably might not want to do it because you go to school for a million years. So considering trade-offs is important. You want to do something that's fulfilling. You also got to recognize the reality of, do you want to rent forever, have enough money to own a home? So trade-offs is important. And I would say also develop daily habits. So I know community colleges, people who are young, people who are older, all in between. Wherever you are in life, I would say developing daily habits is going to be really helpful. So whether you like to pray and meditate or work out each day or read or going to sleep at a regular time, I've noticed that if those kind of basic things in my life begin to falter, the rest of the things I'm doing don't seem to work as well. So I'd say developing daily habits is really important for just general success in life. It's something that it's easier to do when you're younger and in college.
Awesome, thanks. And I guess this question came from Nika. She's just asking about certificates. I know most of you got a transfer degree, but did any of you pick up a certificate that you felt was helpful along the way?
I've gotten a certified financial planner designation. So I took the classes for that at Cal State Fullerton and then took the tests and to be able to do that. I do plan on taking the enrolled agent material soon, which would allow me to prepare tax returns. I actually won't be doing any tax returns because it's a giant pain, but that's one thing I'm going to pursue.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because we are planning to expand our offerings in tax to include CTEC and enrolled agent courses. So
cool.
Stay in touch with us, definitely. Yeah. Let me see if there's any other great questions. Finance and investing is really interesting to me, but I really hate math. Do you suggest trying to reach into finance or avoiding it? I guess that's a Luke question. We'll start with Luke and then go to Enrique. I know they are in finance, and yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah, I mentioned this one in the chat, but it just depends on what area of finance you want to be in. So I personally don't use a lot of high advanced math. I do have a basic understanding, but like, for instance, I didn't finish pre-calculus in high school. And so business calculus was a huge struggle for me in college. I went to the tutor every week for that statistics, and I'm still able to succeed because I use a lot of tools. Yeah.
All right, Enrique, what about yourself?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I personally don't do investment banking, so I'm in insurance, but I have buddies that do investment banking, and they actually it's all basically tools. They're not gonna go like give you a formula, tell you to solve it by hand. Everything is tool based, and from what I've heard, like, you learn most of the stuff on the job. You just need to get hired essentially. So like don't get discouraged because you don't have a lot of math skills. Most people don't.
All right, I see some comments from Roy. He's in business calc now. Ugh, is what I hear. So I didn't really care for business calc, but I actually failed my business statistics. I was working a lot of hours at an auto parts store, and I failed that. But same here, someone says. So anyways, are there any of the panel, have you failed a course ever?
Yes.
Okay, you mind sharing what it was?
It was a math class, but I don't remember if it was a statistic class. It was a really hard class, and that I would guess I wasn't the only one that failed that semester. But just because it was just a first semester going into college, kind of not knowing, but the teacher already expecting everyone to do it, I wasn't the only one that failed. But I took the class again, and kind of redid it, kind of focused on where I needed to actually be, which was studying, doing my work, getting tutored. So don't give up. If you fail a class, it'll be okay. As long as you continue and push yourself harder, you'll get a better grade.
Awesome. How about anyone else? Luke, have you ever failed a course?
No, but I've got a few B's and it felt just as bad.
You have very high expectations for yourself. Jewel, how about yourself?
During my undergrad, so you take around 12 to 16 units, but I took 24 units, almost, I think, like every quarter. And I did an internship and a part-time job at Panda Express because I'm only in college once. But I think that's why meditation and prayer, or, I think what Luke mentioned is very important, because I realize as I'm getting older, you do need a life outside of your job as well. But it wasn't the end of the world I thought it was. But and I think Dr. Fleming's right. I'm taking an audit class right now, and a 63 was a B- in the class. And I was so scared to even get a B+ in the class because I was aiming for an A. But my friend mentioned, after you graduate, no one's going to ask you about your grades. And that's true.
Yeah.
It's also your soft skills and, what you can offer to that job.
I agree with that.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say I sometimes think I study too much in school, in the sense that, I consider GPA like a high score to beat everyone. And that's not really particularly a good way of looking at it. You want to do well and retain the information you learn. But I would say enjoying all aspects of college is helpful too. Like, I remember almost a ton of stuff that I learned because I studied well, and I would encourage you to do that. But there were some times I think I may have gone overboard.
And I think too, in all fairness, and I don't think Luke's going to, be too upset if I say this, but Luke also was set up well. I think his mother was has a doctorate in education, and not every student has that. And so I think that's important to remember too, is where you come from. I mean, my wife had to take SAT exams with the roof leaking, and that's just where she came from. She did okay. She went to USC. She got scholarships and stuff, but everybody's story is different, including myself. I've actually dropped out of 2 master's programs. I was 1 class away at Cal State Fullerton, and the biggest time I notice it is when we're walking down the aisle at graduation. All the other faculty have this really fancy regalia, and mine's all the same color. It's all black and really, drab. And Aaron's laughing there because he's got all the fancy stuff, all these PhDs around me. And that's probably the biggest time where I don't feel that smart. But anyways, life happens, life gets in the way, and you just move on with it. We got 1 more minute left here. I really want to thank everybody for attending these sessions so far. I think they've been just fantastic. Roy mentioned something about taking the stockbroker exam. I agree. If you scored over 75%, it was the same thing with the CPA exam. If you scored over 75, you studied too hard. So, but some people just put high expectations on themselves. And we are at the break period. We'll